Hello everyone, and today we'll talk about warehouses. Yes, boring things like warehouses. So what are warehouses? Before we talk about warehouses, we'll talk about what is controlling or inventory management. Inventory management is making a product available from nowhere for a customer who appears from nowhere. Yes, this is not your standard definition, but ask a guy who is managing inventory and he will tell you exactly this was what it means. So, of all the jobs of an inventory manager, this is his primary job. It is to keep the sales guy happy. It is to keep the chief financial controller happy by making sure that all the inventory is available with least amount of cost spent on it. He has to make the manufacturer happy to make sure that all the inventory that he wants to dump or the is getting dumped in the backyard of the inventory control manager. Also, he has to make the water spiders or the warehousing people happy. These are the bitchiest of the lot. They say, oh, the part is too heavy to put on the shelf. That's not good. I mean, the lighting is less. You have to tell me before time. It's already 5 o'clock. So on and so forth. Before I go into further rant, these is just a context of a person who manages an inventory. The Google definition of a warehouse is a large building where raw materials or manufactured goods may be stored before their export or distribution for sale. That is what not it is. Warehouses are complex structures, very complex, and you need to understand a warehouse by wearing a hat. Who are you in trying to understand a warehouse? If you are a supplier, for you, a warehouse is more or less, a dumping ground for a person where you want to sell your finished good. If you are a manufacturer of that particular goods, then warehouses are somewhere you can find anything at any time possible in order to manufacture your good. If you are a customer, for you, warehouses are something available at your next door, and from you can just call Amazon and pick that delivery on the next day or the same day of some of you for the next same hour. So it is important to understand what context we are talking about when we are talking about warehouses. Now, before we talk about warehouses, we talk about the people who manage it, because those structures are independent. I mean, those do not matter. What matters is the person who controls it, the person who manages the inventory in those warehouses. If you are over cautious as an inventory controller, like you stock very less, or you go for just in time approach, the one that they teach in your school, I guarantee you will get angry customers who are fretting at you, swearing at you, because in the actual world it does not work. People want goods now, like yesterday. Now, if you are an over casual inventory controller, you might end up stocking lots of goods, which will make your CFO a unhappy bitch, and she may be fretting on you on the inventory cost. Yes, your customers would be awesome, they would be delighted with you, but basically, you are servicing them at a huge cost. Now we'll come back to the warehouses and the type of ownership of goods that is in warehouses and the physical presence. Basically, these are the two type of goods, two type of warehouses that are there. One which are classified based on who owns the goods, and the others which are classified based on their physical presence. Now, if you classify goods or warehouses based on ownership, there are two types of warehouses. One is just a normal warehouse where you own the goods which are in your warehouse, and others are consignment warehouses. When you own the goods, which it can be owned as well as leased, it doesn't matter, but it has to be within your premises, and that's why it is called as owned warehouse. And there are consignment warehouse. In consignment warehouse, the ownership of the goods and the location are not the same. Either the ownership is different, or like you do not own the goods, or the location is not at your place. Those type of warehouses are called consignment warehouses. Now, even in consignment warehouses, there are two types: the manufacturer consignment and the customer consignment. The manufacturer consignment is where the manufacturer dumps the good at your yard and he calls it as his consignment or his warehouse. The customer's consignment is when the customer has purchased your good, but he will take its delivery as and when required. And that is called a customer consignment. Again, I just wanted to re-emphasize on all these jargons because that's what not they teach in schools. In schools, it's totally different. We talk about things which are never used in practical life. I'm trying to give you an insight based on my experience in what is supply chain management. Now, a quick classification of what we just discussed. If the location is in your establishment and if you own the particular warehouse, then it's or the goods, it's called a normal warehouse. It's part of your inventory valuation. If the goods are in your establishment but the manufacturer owns it, then it is called OEM consignment warehouse and it is not part of your inventory valuation. If the goods are in your establishment, but if the customer owns it, it is as good as a sold product. And it should also be not considered as part of your inventory valuation. If the goods are at your customer's establishment and you own it, it is consignment warehouse owned by you. And yes, those should be considered as part of your inventory valuation. Now, if you do not know what inventory valuation is, probably I'll make a different video of that later, but we can talk about it later. That's not a big deal. Now, we'll go into a day-to-day life of an inventory controller. Imagine this an inventory controller. You need to make chairs available to say a Walmart or a Target or any particular big size store. Now their requirement is like 50, 100, 250 and 100 over the period of 4 months. Now to make 4 different trips from wherever you are located in the hinterland of the country, to make it to each Walmart location would be a pain. To organize the logistics, the cost of logistics would be an absolute disaster. So just imagine the scenario that you want to fit or just sell or send one chair by putting it across in a truck or MV or any vehicle to make it available to Walmart. Imagine the amount of money you need to spend in order to make that chair available to Walmart. Now consider a different scenario where you dump all those 50 odd chairs in a container and give it across to Walmart and ask them that they can use it as and when they need it. Effective? Yes. Customer centric? Yes. So it checks all the points of having the goods available as close to the customer as possible. There are some disadvantages also. We'll discuss those later. But that's what I'm saying is it's not that simple. It depends on how much your product sells. Do your customers want to keep your goods in stock in bulk? And what are your return privileges? Like if some customers they just buy your good and then they when they want to return it, if you can charge them with say 10%, 20%, that is an awesome sort of business because they did not sell that goods. But it depends on supply, demand, and the nature of the product. So if any book tells you, tell them back, or any professor tells you, give them back. No one rule fits all products or all industries. Even within a category, there are different rules and regulations or return norms or supply norms for every particular good. So as an inventory controller, you have to be as flexible and as niche into understanding your suppliers and manufacturers as you can. The solution or we discussed was dump all those goods into the Walmarts or the Targets or that near to the customer. But it doesn't help. You will have unconsumed and obsolete inventory that can cause problems. It is also a very inefficient way of inventory management because your goods are just lying at the customer's place and the customer is going to pay you only and only when they are sold. There might be some other customer who is willing and is able to make you payment in that month, but you just do not have the goods because you think that the place where you dump the Walmarts or the Targets, they will be able to sell your chairs more efficiently. So it is sort of an inefficient way of managing your inventory. But there are other pros. Your customer is happy because he does not own the inventory, but he can sell it anytime. You are happy because your goods are close to the customer. The competition is virtually ruled out. And even though you actually own the inventory, you do not have to maintain the warehouse. So, this is how the consignment warehouse consumption works. You just dump 500 chairs in Jan, the warehouse or the customer consumes none, the balance is 500. In the next month, the customer consumes 50, the balance is 450, and 100, 350. In April, he consumes 250, the balance is 100, so on and so forth. So you just made just one trip to the customer, and then you satisfied his demand across 5 months. Whether this is the effective method or not, that is absolutely subjective to the business environment. But you have to tread with caution as an inventory controller of what you are dumping across, because there might be a scenario that the consumption after the end of 5 months might be zero and all these 500 quantities might be coming back at you. Again, as I said, try this to do with an aircraft engine. Try dumping 500 aircraft engines to Boeings or the Airbuses of the world. That's going to surely backfire. Now we are talking about classification of warehouses based on their physical delivery, like the virtual warehouses, wherein let's talk about what a virtual warehouse is. Basically, within a premises, there can be 2 or 3 warehouses. Like you can have the OEM's warehouse as well as your warehouse. So whenever you want to consume something, you pick it up from the OEM's warehouse, you transfer it into your warehouse, and it's ready for delivery. So as you can see, the time when the part was on your inventory was a matter of seconds. So you avoided all the inventory carrying cost because the OEM was always carrying the cost of on his books for the inventory. So these are virtual warehouses. So whenever you look at a particular warehouse, there is a possibility that there might be inventory which is not owned by you. That is called virtual warehouses. There are other examples of virtual warehouses wherein number of branches can share one warehouse because it is more efficient way of sharing space as well as resources, like the person who controls the warehouse. Again, this was my 2 cents of what inventory control, or for that matter warehouses are. If you want me to make more videos like this, let me know. Click subscribe and put your comments below. Thank you and adios.